Good morning. It is Tuesday, February the 19th, and this is The Drill. And thank you very much. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America today, because I'm the only one that makes the presumption for the status quo. See, we've all been ripped off. We've all been tricked, brainwashed by the left into believing that where we stand politically is where we stand on the issues, when in reality, where we stand politically is where we stand on one issue: change. If we make the presumption for the status quo, we're realistic and conservative. If we make the presumption for change, we are liberal and idealistic. And this is important because the left put this in issues-based politics into motion and did so to rig the game so that the left wins all the time. With issues-based politics, the left wins and wins at the expense of everybody else in the country. But with reality-based politics in which we define ourselves by what's real, not only do conservatives win, everybody wins. Today, the Op Hawkeye operator of the day is the person we honor and remember is the selfless service and sacrifice of fallen Dev Group Gold Squadron operator and Navy SEAL William Ryan Owens. He was sadly killed in action 2 years ago in Yemen. The world lost one of its finest warriors that day. Rest easy, Ryan. You are never forgotten. The Crusaders. And Op Hawkeye is it's at Op Hawkeye, at Op_Hawkeye on Instagram. And it comes complete with pictures. The picture I'm looking at right now is of a senior chief petty officer standing in front of a fireplace in his full navy blues, standing in front of a fireplace, and above the mantle is a framed portrait of George Washington. But if you want to, of course, subscribe or follow Op Hawkeye on Instagram, it's at Op_Hawkeye. When I come back, I'm going to be reading from the when I come back, I'm going to play a little clip from Liz Wheeler, make some comments on that, and then we'll go into the Ayn Rand lexicon. Thank you very much. Welcome back. And so Liz Wheeler has there's a show on OAN, and she has, there's this segment on OAN, or a show on OAN that's called The Tipping Point, and then she does a segment called The Final Point. And so this segment is called The Most Disgusting Thing About the Jussie Smollette Scandal.
You know, the most disgusting thing about the whole Jussie Smollette scandal is that the left and the mainstream media want to believe that everybody who wears a Make America Great Again hat, everybody who dared to vote for Donald Trump, is a racist and willing to attack a gay black man for his skin color and his sexual orientation. This is not only false, it's just plain gross. Let me repeat. The left wants to believe that half the people in our country, the people who voted for Donald Trump, are all violent racists. I know, if you don't believe me, I invite you to check out the mainstream media's initial response to the Jussie Smollette story. When Smollette claimed he was attacked, did the mainstream media investigate his claims? No, they didn't. Did the mainstream media do their due diligence as journalists? Did they base their reports on facts? Nope. The mainstream media said this is America in 2019, which of course is a euphemism for this is Donald Trump's America. Do you know how many hoax hate crimes have been perpetuated since Donald Trump took office? The left is so desperate to believe what they want to believe that they fabricated a false narrative that Trump is ushering in racism and hate. And this narrative is so false that people literally have to make up hate crimes that didn't happen to try to back up the left's lies. A few examples of this. The LGBT student at Ohio State who claimed she was the victim of a gay hate crime, she made it up. The Muslim woman who claimed her mosque was set on fire as a hate crime, she made it up. She set the mosque on fire herself. The Muslim teenager who claimed Trump supporters yanked off her hijab on the subway in a hate crime, she made it up. She lied because she was late for her curfew and she didn't want to tell her parents. And now, Jussie Smollette says he was attacked by a MAGA hat-wearing thug. Even though police say he paid the man to fake attack him, it appears he made it up. Meanwhile, the left ignores the truth that the vast majority of Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans, 81%, condemn white supremacy and racism. But wait, it's more convenient for the left to ignore the truth so that they can try to peddle their vicious lies. This is what happens when the left glorifies a culture of victimhood. Stupid people believe they will benefit if they're perceived as victims, so they present themselves as victims. Just ask Elizabeth Warren. Jussie Smollette is a gay black man who can live his life however he wants, who's professionally and financially successful in one of the most competitive industries in the entire United States. But the left has indoctrinated our culture to the point that instead of being proud of his success and using his story to help other, perhaps disadvantaged black or gay kids, Smollette thinks the best move for him is to pretend he's a victim and reap benefits from that. The whole thing is sickening. And that's my final point.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on them.
And so the thing that I take away from that that she didn't mention is that the truth wins out in the end. A lot of people, you got two sides basically in this country. One side, the left, says that what's important is power, that's all that's important, that there really isn't any such thing, or that concepts and abstractions such as truth aren't real. They don't exist. They are arbitrary constructs. And this is proof, what is happening now with Jussie Smollette, that the truth is real, that it does matter, and that it is the ultimate power. So, let me go ahead and get with Ayn Rand here. Let's see what we got. There we go. And find out what we've got for the Ayn Rand, from the Ayn Rand lexicon, the concept of the day, speaking of concepts. And it's final causation. In order to make the choices required to achieve his goals, a man needs the constant, automatized awareness of the principle which the anti-concept duty has all but obliterated in his mind, the principle of causality. Specificity. Wait a minute. This word doesn't make any sense. Of Aristotelian final causation, which in fact applies only to a conscious being, i.e. the process by which the ends determines the means, i.e. the process of choosing a goal and taking the actions necessary to achieve it. In a rational ethics, it is causality, not duty, that serves as the guiding principle in considering, evaluating, and choosing one's actions, particularly those necessary to achieve a long-range goal. Following this principle, a man does not act without knowing the purpose of his action. In choosing a goal, he considers the means required to achieve it. He weighs the value of the goal against the difficulties of the means and against the full hierarchical context of all his other values and goals. He does not demand the impossible of himself, and he does not decide too easily which things are impossible. He never drops the context of the knowledge available to him and never evades reality, realizing fully that his goal will not be granted to him by any power other than his own action. And, should he evade, it is not some Kantian authority that he would be cheating, but himself. Only a process of final causation, i.e. the process of choosing a goal, then taking the steps to achieve it, can give logical continuity, coherence, and meaning to a man's actions. So, maybe a key for people that you may hear or run into that are asking, what's the meaning of life? What does all this mean? There's an answer for you right there. So, I'll be back in a minute. Thank you very much. Welcome back. And rules for radicals defeated. So when we left this, we were in the middle of the section of the chapter that was about whether or not to use Alinsky's tactics. Is it acceptable to use them, for anybody to use them? There are certain things that I believe we can all agree are morally reprehensible. If we lie or knowingly spread false information about others, it seems obvious that such actions are wrong. Inciting people to violence or fabricating information, likewise, seem clearly wrong. Any hint of racism or sexism is clearly wrong. However, there are certain aspects of Alinsky's tactics that are not so clear. Is it acceptable to ridicule someone? There is no question that using Alinsky tactics can cause us to walk a moral tightrope. But many of the tactics can be employed without offending the conscience. Additionally, I offer an entire chapter on principles that can be used to defeat Alinsky tactics without violating our sense of morality. If you're willfully misrepresenting someone, then it's wrong. If you are simply finding creative ways to expose someone's wrongdoing, then it certainly is not. The moral parameters within which each of us is willing to operate will vary slightly, but we should not stoop to their level. We should never simply call names, incite violence, or otherwise engage in any of a host of other things that the left finds no problem with. Let common sense and common decency be your guide. And I would say even simpler is what he's trying to get around to saying is that the whole notion that might makes right and the ends justify the means is crap. It's pure crap. It's wrong. They don't. And so that's why you don't do just anything, no matter whether you're right or left, to achieve your aims. And we know it's wrong because we know reality exists, that things can be known with certainty, and that there are universal rights and wrongs. To the Alinskyite, it is victory at any cost and by any means necessary. To the rest of us, victory is our goal, but the way we achieve that victory is important as well. They may believe the ends justify the means, but we must be better than that. We must work harder and find ways to beat them at their own game without losing our souls in the process. And actually, he's wrong. You don't need to beat them at their own game. What you simply need to do is quit playing their game in the first place. Make them play your game, the game of intellect, the game of integrity, the game of reality, certainty, morality, and beauty. And once you get them to play your game, you can't lose. The way things are set up in this country today, as I've said in my introduction, politically speaking, it is set up so that the left wins all the time, and the Republicans win never. But that's only if we play the game by the left's rules. Quit playing the game by the left's rules, and conservatives can't lose. Back to the book. As far as the end justifying the means, there is a common thread in this ideology. It is present in all the political philosophies that have arisen to offer an antithetical choice to American democracy. I would encourage the reader to study the use of ends justify the means philosophy in Leninism and radical Islam. In the meantime, we should understand Alinsky tactics and use them with caution. While using some of the tactics will not be morally problematic, others create difficulties. It is good to understand the tactics, know how to defend against them, and in some cases use them yourself. Rather than using many of the tactics, it would probably be better simply to learn them and then apply the principles set forth in Chapter 4. And so now we're at Chapter 3, the 13 main Alinsky tactics explained. So, back in a minute. Thank you very much. Welcome back. The 30 covert emotional manipulation techniques. And I was just reading a little part of this, and something jumped out at me. And they were talking about the difference in this particular part of the chapter between intimacy and intensity. And originally I wanted to look at this chapter and read this chapter as a way of demonstrating to people how it is that the left operates in our country sociopolitically to manipulate people in order to get their way. But I saw something else in here. To know that you are loved for who you are, and to know someone else in all of their vulnerability and to love them as they are may be one of life's most fulfilling experiences, says sociologist Brené Brown. Intensity, on the other hand, is the opposite of fulfilling. It is draining, exhausting, crazy-making, and ultimately meaningless and empty. And I would say that power struggle, that intensity is fundamentally about power struggles. And again, if you're engaged in constant power struggles, you're always going to be waking up in the morning thinking, God, another day, do I really have to go through this? And at the end of the day, you're going to be saying, why? What's the meaning of all of this? Kind of thing. But even beyond that, one of the things that struck me is two people, Michael Jackson and the guy from Penn State, the former coach from Penn State, that Michael Jackson was of course, put on trial for child molestation, but found not guilty, whereas the coach was put on trial and found guilty. But what was interesting to me about both of these figures is that they both had moments that got them into trouble. They had moments with the news people where they were being interviewed that got them into trouble. Michael Jackson had the warm milk interview in which people were asking about him, with how he deals with children and whatnot. And he says, "Oh yeah, we all go to bed together and we have warm milk, and it's really sweet and all this other stuff." And without seeming to realize how creepy this is coming across, that this is tantamount to a confession that he's a child molester. Then you had the incident with the former coach from Penn State, and he was on the radio and he was being interviewed, and the interviewer asked him, "Are you sexually attracted to boys?" He hesitated. He asked the question, "Am I sexually attracted to boys?" And then he finally made some kind of a weak denial, but there was a long pause in there. Well, of course, that's going to get him into a lot of trouble. So you would think both of these folks, if they know that what they're doing is wrong, and if they're, acting in clandestine ways, then obviously they do, then why would you come out and give interviews like this? And my theory on this has always been because they want to be normal. The one thing that they want above all else that they can't have, or have not been able so far to have, is a sense of normalcy, meaning they want to be loved for who they are. They want to be able to go to a cocktail party, have somebody slap them on the back and say, "Oh, you old pedophile, how you doing? Who's your latest conquest?" Okay? And now, before this, they were always, again, everything was clandestine, and for a while that was great for them because they could had this thrilling double life thing going. In the case of the football coach, he was married and appeared to be a normal guy. He's a part of a couple, and they go to, I'm sure, again, to cocktail parties and whatnot, go out in public together, and on the outside, they look like a normal couple. Only he knows what's really going on in the basement of his house and in the showers. And that's the other thing, where all of a sudden, normally he was taking care of his business in the basement of his house, and then all of a sudden he's out doing his business in the showers at Penn State in the athletic department. You may as well just walk around with a sign in your neck around your neck saying I shtup little boys. Why would he do that? Because again, the one thing that he hasn't been able to have, even though he can, laugh to himself, he can say, "Wow, these people don't know," isn't that? And he gets a certain rush out of that, out of living this double life. After a certain point, it becomes hollow, meaningless, and he realizes the only way his life is ever going to have any meaning is if he's accepted for who he is, because there's no way he's giving it up. He's not going to quit being a pedophile. So the only way for him to get any meaning out of his life is to be accepted for who he is. That means that people need to know who he is in order for him to be accepted. Now, he can't come out. He and Michael Jackson knew they can't just come out and blurt it out. "Oh, by the way, I'm a pedophile. I shtup little boys," and expect to be accepted. They figure, well, maybe if I sugarcoat it, maybe if I do it in a kind of a roundabout way, maybe I'll be able to convince people that I'm not some kind of an evil monster, that I'm in reality not much more different than they are. And that again, was their downfall, especially for the coach from Penn State. So that's what jumped out at me for this particular segment. And at this time, that brings me to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.